Okay. All right. Good evening. We're going to get right to it. Today we'll be talking about time in isolation, which is going to be pretty straightforward because time acts very, very funny when you're alone. Ask me how I know. So we'll do about 15 minutes worth of work tonight, then we'll carry on. We're going to do apologize for how slow this is going. Working through an injury right now that's affecting my shoulder. So give me 1 second while I get things started on my end. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Time in isolation. Let's see. Time when you're isolated and alone behaves differently. The usual, don't drink unless you're like old and broken like me. Time when you're isolated and alone behaves differently. Minutes start feeling longer. No, you don't want to do that. You start to lose you start your grasp on the work. Minutes start feeling longer. No. It feels like it's never consistent. What feels like an hour feels like an hour is actually minutes just going by. And vice versa. I think I mentioned this before, but look at Spencer Mansion. We can say that Stars Alpha team got there at probably 7 o'clock at night. We'll just say 6, 7 o'clock at night. Midwestern town, Raccoon City, so they're going off of mountain time. So I'm in the Midwest right now. It's 5 o'clock, the sun's going down. So I would say it was like pitch black, like at least pitch black. So we'll say 7 o'clock, just be on the cute side. 7 o'clock going on 8 o'clock. And they finished the whole mission. Well, finished. The mansion blew up at dawn. So they were there from like 7, 8 o'clock all the way till like the sun usually the sun comes up like around like 5, 6 o'clock. No, not even 5 o'clock, like 6 o'clock in the morning. So we can say from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They spent about 10, 12 hours in the mansion. But put yourself in their shoes. They're dealing with a very stressful situation. That 10 hours may not seem like a lot. That's just like a sleeping cycle right there. Well, sleeping 10 hours is actually pretty godlike, but I digress. That 10 hours could feel like 24, possibly longer, just because of how stressed out a situation like that was. So yeah, they were in the mansion for like at least 10 to 12 hours, but granted how circumstances were, could have felt a lot longer, especially if you're in Rebecca's shoes. She was in that situation for way longer, for like at least 2 days. Well, at least you know, but if you count Dark Side Chronicles, Rail Chronicles, which one of the rail shooters that she at least took a nap. Vice versa. Time when you're isolated and alone behaves differently. You start to lose your grasp on the world. It feels like time is never consistent. what feels like an hour is only minutes just going by, and vice versa. Okay. Hmm. What else do I want to do here? This is gonna be a really short one. Ooh, hello. Yeah, let's just say I'll be streaming Golden Sun in a little bit. I just wanted to get this out of the way. Oh God, I spent 2.5 hours yesterday on that, but I still hurt. Too much pixels, too much pixels, too much pixels, too much pixels. But yeah, I got a good chunk of that done. So I'm doing this one a little bit earlier, get this out of the way, so I can actually dedicate at least another couple of hours to that because there's a lot of stuff I have to do. It's actually crazy the amount of stuff that I'm doing. But I'm implementing a little bit more of a horror feel to that. So that's going to get pretty crazy soon. Very, very crazy. Luckily, I play a lot of scary games, that's for sure. Yeah, time zones are crazy. Time zones are funny enough. I'm talking about time and scary games right now. Yeah, time zones are actually pretty godlike. Yeah, I'm trying to with that. It's I need to make I'm trying to change things up a little bit with that. We definitely again I'm trying to do like another horror feel for that. Like we're gonna be going into some weird topics. That's why I do my horror streams first when I'm doing these. I do these first so I can get like in the mood to write to work on that. Like there's some crazy stuff I got planned. It's just I gotta implement it properly. Like definitely we be doing some crazy eldritch horror shenanigans. Definitely be doing that. I just gotta figure it out. But yeah, like that's getting pretty crazy. Really, really crazy. I didn't think it was gonna be that nuts, but we're where we're at. So again, it's good that I have a background in horror games because I'm definitely using that for that sprite animation. Like things are getting crazy over there. Um, again, time is gonna be a big aspect on that. Time when you're isolated and alone behaves differently. You start to lose grasp on the world. It feels like time is never consistent. What feels like an hour is only minutes just going by, and then vice versa. Yeah, that's fuck. I kind of lost my train of thought, but it's all good. I can figure that out in a second. Hmm. I remember there was one scene I used in that the hand grasping thing. I'm like, I took references from a scary game I played one time. Like, yeah, that's what I'm aiming for with Mia. He's gonna when things hit the fan, she's gonna be just batshit crazy. But again, I'm gonna be doing some funky stuff. A little bit later on when I actually stream that, it's gonna be nuts. All right, let's see. In horror, with distortion of time. Time is such a weird aspect in gaming. Like you never want to. You have to tread very lightly with time because if you screw up, things can get all over the place. This happens with time traveling a lot. Like play The Legend of Zelda, for example. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, specifically that, is very notorious because of its time travel gimmick. Things got very complicated in that whole entire series because of Ocarina of Time because they mess around with time. Time is a very delicate mistress. You don't never want to mess around with time. So when you're isolated, time behaves differently, which where I'm getting at. So in horror, in horror, distortion of time, distortion, distortion of time is cruel. It's definitely cruel. Like, you begin, and like I mentioned before, these streams have to be a little bit short. It does. Like time travel is one of the worst things imaginable. Like obviously with Golden Sun, we're doing some funky time shenanigans there. We definitely are. There's gonna be some crazy stuff happening soon when I actually get there. But time traveling or just time in general, you just have to be so careful. Like you don't want to write yourself in a corner when you deal with time traveling, or even just time in general. Like I gave an example with the Resident Evil series. What felt like 10 hours for them to do Resident Evil 1 was possibly like 24 hours in their eyes. Granted how the situation was. This time is very cruel. Extremely, extremely cruel. That's why I have to be a little bit careful when I'm like writing my narratives, at least for Golden Sun. Like yesterday I spent like at least 20 minutes after that stream jotting down notes. A lot of notes, because if I don't do things right, things may be very complicated. Like I'm decent at writing. That is true. That is true. This is why a lot of spooky games don't really deal with time shenanigans, because, well, I take that back. The Silent Hill 2 remake is dealing with some time shenanigans there. Silent Hill 2 remake is definitely dealing with some shenanigans in regards to time, because that James Sunderland, I play a lot of horror games. That James Sunderland that's leaving, that James may be trapped in a very weird time loop, because he's receiving notes from someone that's probably him, who's gone through Silent Hill a lot. So yeah, like when it comes to like time, you have to be very careful. So you begin in the moment. That's why I'm kind of happy some of the JRPGs that I play don't really deal with time like that, because again, I hate plot holes. So that's one of the worst things you can have like in a video game or an anime in general, just having plot holes. You begin in the moment. You begin in the moment. You begin in the moment. Alerts. You begin in the moment. Alerts. Begin in the moment. Alert. Yeah. Holy shit, yeah, that's gonna be kind of cool. I'm just thinking about it right now. Like, I have to be very careful. Like, I have to be careful writing this. I have to be careful later on tonight, because if I don't like writing myself into a corner. Let's just say that in a where. Writing yourself into a corner when you're doing stuff like this is difficult. You begin in the moment, alert and aware, but the longer you remain isolated, the longer you remain silent, the more it eats at your sense of self. The more it eats at your sense of self. Your sense of self. Like, let me see. What's a good example? What's a good example of this? I'll use a horror example for this. I'll use 3 different examples to explain what I'm going with right now. I used the Resident Evil 1 example earlier because, again, in Spencer Mansion, they arrived around 8 o'clock and they finished everything by the sun coming up. That's like at least 10 to 12 hours. Sure, but it could have felt a lot longer. Using a JRPG. JRPGs are hard because the sense of time is never really consistent, because I'll use Golden Sun as an example. You never see the sun go down, at least in 2 sequences. 2 sequences in... Yeah, 2 sequences, not even in the first game. The sun never goes down in that first game. The second game, you have 2 sequences where the sun does go down. Komobo and Garou. So... Oh, Jesus Christ, that's so bad. Yeah. If I could be a betting man, I would say that whole entire journey spanning 2 games, that should have been possibly a couple of years. Yeah. That's really crazy. So I used the horror example there. Time, depending on the person, could seem to go a lot longer because of stressors. Like, I gave my own example. During a mission, stranded for 12 days, because I had to stay behind with a broken down vehicle. Time went by so slow. It was so bad. It was actually miserable the entire time. Resident Evil. Resident Evil 1. Mission probably lasted at least 12 hours, max. But for the STARS members, could have felt a lot longer. Using Golden Sun as a JRPG example. The first game, sun never goes down. One could assume they're traveling around the damn continent. One could assume that journey probably took months. Months. Golden Sun 2 is another example. The sun goes down twice, but that's not a good indicator. Yeah, because one of us had to stay behind with the vehicle, and lo and behold, I was driving that vehicle, and it was a 14-day mission, and it broke down on the second day, and I had to stay behind. I survived with MREs and water. Yeah, like it's crazy. Using another game as an example, use The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time again as an example. Time, but to go figure, the game that has time in it is probably the worst involving time, because that world, that the sun and the moon, set in 5-minute intervals. Well, not even 5 minutes. Like the sun goes up and it's already going down, like at the 3-minute mark. So time in that game is horrible. Holy crap, time is terrible in that game. So time when you're isolated and alone behaves differently. You start to lose your grasp on the world. It feels like time is never consistent. What feels like an hour is only minutes just going by, and then vice versa. In horror, distortion of time is cruel. You begin in the moment, alert and aware, but the longer you remain isolated, the more it eats away at your sense of self. Yeah, because you start going crazy because time. Yeah, you literally start going crazy there. This is why, like, I'll play any game. If anybody recommend me a game, I'll play it. But if it involves time, it's just gonna be so hard. It's just gonna be so hard because eventually there's gonna be like a plot hole or some random hole in the story that you're gonna notice. And they did that in like Kingdom Hearts when they introduced some weird time traveling gimmick. So the game or the story stops needing to scare you, because time is already scaring you, because your sense of self is gone. It stops needing to scare you. Yeah, because what's a good example? What's another good example? Using Five Nights at Freddy's right here. That probably took like half a day, to be honest. The entirety of Resident Evil 4 probably was a day, because you start like in like the daytime and you finish up at sunrise. That's a trope right there. That's a trope. That's literally a trope, because usually the game ends when the sun's going up. Well, a game usually ends at dawn time. So the game or the story stops needing to scare you. Starts needing to scare you with what lurks behind the door. What lurks? I never actually even thought about that with Golden Sun. It's like, wow, the sun actually went down only twice throughout that whole entire series. That's nutty. One could assume when you sleep at an inn that the sun's going down. one could assume. Fuck, 5:30. Okay. The game or the story stops needing to scare you with what lurks behind the door. Instead, it makes you wonder. Instead, it makes you wonder. How long has it been since it was last open? Yeah, that's a good analogy there. Instead, it makes you wonder how long it's been since it was last opened. So, my thing is, I dig way too deep into gaming just in general. Like, I always like thinking outside the box when I'm like doing anything. If I'm writing a script, or if I'm just like gaming in general, like I'm gonna be taking a break in a few minutes. I'm going right to playing Silent Hill F before my Golden Sun stream, because I gotta replay it just because of this video. But I just go above and beyond like the normal gamer at times. Because again, that's what I do here on YouTube. I do lore stuff. I write stories. But sometimes my head does hurt at times. Last opened. So let's read this again. Time when you're isolated and alone behaves differently. You start to lose your grasp on the world. Instead, well, it feels like time is never consistent. What feels like an hour is only minutes just going by, and then vice versa. In horror, yes, in horror, distortion of time is understandable. Yeah. You begin in the moment, alert and aware, but the longer you remain isolated, the more it eats away at your sense of self. The story, or the game, or the story stops needing to scare you with what lurks behind the door. Instead, it makes you wonder how long has it been since it was last opened. Again, I'll use another example with time. I think God of War 2 implemented time traveling. It makes sense because you have gods that actually deal with time. But hell, one could say Kratos' journey probably did not take that long. And that's where things just get so crazy. Using the horror games I'm using here as an example. Resident Evil 4, again, probably at best was a day, because you start the game again in the morning. Well, you saw the sun was still up, besides the gray filter making it seem like you're at evening for some weird reason. Then it ended when the sun rose. Cool, we'll just say the whole game was like 24 hours long. Fine. Silent Hill F, you're in the fog world. Like well, majority of the time you're not in the real world. You're in a weird version of the fog world. So time will probably act differently there. FNAF security breach. Ruin, probably half the day, like I mentioned earlier. Like, you don't really have a clear indicator of where the sun is. So time, again, it's very cruel when you're dealing with time, because you just never know. Like, I love knowing what time is it. Like right now, mystery for 20 minutes. Me personally, I know what time is it just by looking where the sun is, because that's what they teach us. Like, high noon, it's noontime. Just look at the position of the sun. Like right now, it's dark. The sun, last time I checked when I went outside earlier, it sets that way. So it was around 4 or 5 o'clock. So I know it's like at least 4 or 5 o'clock. And when it's down, it's nighttime. It's a lot harder at night because obviously you can't tell what the sun is. But use the moon as a indicator of what time is it. It's just, again, certain games that do involve like a time gimmick just make things so hard. It really does. That's why at least in horror games we're pretty consistent for the most part. It's just certain games definitely kind of throw it out the window. They definitely do. Which again is fine if it's done right, but sometimes it's not done right, which complicates things a lot. That is true. It's because people aren't taught how to do it. It's like, again, at its highest point, the sun is right above you. Noontime. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Like I take away this watch out of my hand. Take away my phone. At least I'll know just based where the sun is. What time is it? And yeah, like it's people do have a hard time. Like if you're stranded, again isolated. If you're stranded, just find the North Star. There's your bearing of north. Like hell, I've learned my lesson the hard way. If I'm ever stranded, I always have a compass on me. Which is, you just gave me a great idea. There's a point. I'm gonna do like another couple of minutes because I definitely got to go get dinner. Then I got to come back and do that stream later. There is a point. There's a point where time. There's a point where, yeah, the loss of time. There's a point where the loss of time becomes a loss of self. Ooh, yeah, we're gonna be cheeky. Becomes a loss of self. Becomes a loss of self. Without markers. There we go, markers. Without markers. Whether it be this, your phone, or anything that shows you, at the time, we're pretty much screwed. Without markers, Like the sunrise, like we just mentioned. Sunrise. Oh, without markers. Sunrise. Sunset. 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 And I guess the passing noise of the world. Because, yeah, passing noise of the world. Passing noise of the world. You begin to feel, without markers, sunrise, sunset, and the passing noise of the world, you feel like you're in limbo. All right, I gotta be cute here. You feel like you're in limbo. You feel like you're in limbo. In limbo. If I could actually spell, you feel like you're in limbo. You exist, but you don't know how long you've been existing for. And I forgot that. You're in limbo. You exist, but you're not aware how long you. Ooh, wait. You exist, but you're not. You're not aware of how long you've been doing so. All right, so let me read this. I think we're good. Okay. I can finish that up tomorrow. So let's see. Time, when you're isolated and alone, behaves differently. You start to lose your grasp on the world. It feels like time is never consistent because time is ever so moving every single time. What feels like an hour is only minutes just going by, and then vice versa. In horror, distortion of time is cruel. You being in the moment, alert and aware. You being in the moment, alert and aware, but the longer... I gotta rephrase that. I'll rewrite that later. It's not a big deal. You being in the moment, alert and aware, but the longer you remain isolated, the more it eats away at your sense of self. I really gotta rewrite that later. The game or the story stops needing to scare you or what lurks behind the door. Instead, it makes you wonder how long it's been since that door was last open. Door was last open. Okay, there we go. There's a point where the loss of time becomes a loss of self. Without markers, sunrise, sunset. Sunrise, sunset, and the passing noise of the world, you feel like you're in limbo. You exist, but you're not aware of how long you've been doing so. The way I'm wording this, the passing noise of the world, we're being cute with that just because, let's just say, again, I don't have my watch, I don't have my phone. I can tell how time is going, just how the rest of the world is react towards me. Obviously, we have the light in the sky, but let's just say we don't know how time flows. We don't know that high noon means, hey, it's noontime. The sun's at its highest point. Just going off of how people are acting, or not just people, because we're isolated. When we're isolated, the world is still moving. So we're by ourselves, but nature is still ongoing. If you hear birds chirping, what's the meme? The meme is the birds always will wake you up at like buck crack AM. So birds will always wake up like at least around like when the sun's coming up, like around 4, 5, or 6 o'clock. So you hear birds chirping and it's still nighttime, you know the sun's still going, the sun's about to come up. You're about to be at sunrise. If you stop hearing noise, if you start hearing crickets, if you start seeing like animals that are only nocturnal, like if you hear excessive hooting from owls, if you see snakes that are normally active during like nocturnal hours, pretty much if you see anything that comes out at night, you know, hey, it's about to be nighttime soon. I should probably hunker down. So you have resources in order to help you know where time is. Just people don't know how to utilize resources. So using the passing noise as a passing noise of the world, that's just saying, hey, use your eyes. Besides seeing the light in the sky, hey, the world is still ongoing. Let me use what's there as an indicator of how much time is going by. Again, using the birds chirping in the morning, because birds normally aren't active at nighttime. They're active during the day. So they're waking up at that specific time during when the sun's about to come up. Snakes, owls, anything that comes out at night, crickets, use crickets for all I care. You know it's about to be like at least sunset because they're about to get active. Okay, good stuff. anyways, we did good. We got a good amount done because this one's kind of oddly specific because time is really weird to talk about because we never really have a clear indicator how time flows in games unless it's like in our face. Hey, look, the sun's going down. Hey, the sun's coming up, etc., etc., etc. We just gotta guess it, whether it's a horror game, a JRPG, an FPS, what have you. Time is hard when you have to deal with something like this. Anyways, I gotta go have dinner. I'll be back later with sprite animation. I gotta play Silent Hill F for like an hour because I need to replay it again, which I have been replaying it. So good stuff. I'll see people later. Take care, and I'll see y'all a little bit.